Hello. My name is Simone and I am the founder of Northern Power Women and the Power Collective CIC. Welcome to our monthly webinar. This is our May webinar, and we are talking today about resilience and well-being. And I think so many conversations, don't we, out there about well-being. It's not always about just putting a piece of fruit in a bowl. You know, that will not solve all of this. We're going to kind of dive into looking at resilience. And I think we've all been through and even now are going through some sort of challenging times. And so we want to kind of, how do we build on that resilience? So we want you to be able to take away some insights, some top tips that you can put into practice after today's 45-minute conversation. I've got some brilliant panelists who I'm going to bring into the chat in a short while, but please do join the conversation. Join us if you're watching live or you're watching us on demand playback. Please do join in the conversation at all of our social media channels using hashtag We Are Power. But as I say, we want to be able to give you some actionable insights that you can take away and take on into whether it be your life or your work. And that's what today's around. So I am looking forward to having a great conversation today. And as I say, really want to hear from yourselves as well. I want to understand what people's view of resilience is. What are those kind of strategies that work, and how we really cultivate that sense of purpose and meaning through these challenging times and challenging times in the future. So please do, as I say, make use of the chat box. And without further ado, I want to welcome into the conversation today for the next 45 minutes. Joining me are Bryony Littler, Lee Chambers and Lara Morgan. Welcome. Bryony, can I come to you for you just to let us know who you are and what's resilience to you?
Hello, yes. Hi, everyone. My name's Bryony Littler. I work at United Utilities. My role is Health and Wellbeing Business Partner. I am in the office today, hence you can hear beeping. Everybody's going for their lunches and getting outside and getting some sunshine. My background, I've always worked in mental health in some way, shape or form. I'm trained as kind of like a CBT, low intervention therapist, and then I've been in roles working in the NHS and Mind, and now I'm kind of here at the water company, but still in a health and wellbeing role, but more, I guess, like a prevention focused role, because I do think we have all got mental health and well-being, and we should be looking after it and doing what we can to protect it, just like we do our physical health. So that's my passion. That's me. I'm going to try and speak slowly and not 1,000 miles an hour, because I do waffle and talk. So yeah, but no, thanks for having me.
It's passion. What did he say? If you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And that leads me on to Lee Chambers, award-winning Lee Chambers. Welcome, our Agent of Change winner this year at the Northern Power Women Awards. Welcome to today's webinar.
Yeah, lovely to be with you, everyone, this lovely sunny afternoon. So yeah, I'm Lee Chambers, psychologist, founder of a workplace wellbeing company. Do a lot of work across a variety of areas, quite often looking at groups who are marginalised and minoritized and how we can improve their well-being in the workplace. And yeah, had some resilience challenges in my own life. I'll probably share a little bit about those later. But yeah, very lucky and honoured to be the agent of change in the Northern Power Women this year. So yeah, very much privileged to be here and very much looking forward to the conversation.
And now we get you working straight away, don't we, Lee? That's how it works, not just for one night. And if anyone knows that more than anyone, it's Lara Morgan. I've known Lara for a long time. Lara is the person who said to me, why are you not doing this for yourself? Why are you working for someone else? This is flipping ridiculous, I think, is what you said. And I remember thinking, I'm not resilient enough to run my own business. And here we are, Lara, 10 years later when we first met. Welcome. Thanks for joining me. I know I'm super busy. Everyone is, but thanks for joining us. You're on mute, Lara, so not that resilient to turn the mute button on.
Is that better?
You're on.
Okay, sorry. Resilience required. Simone, interesting point. Was it A, that long ago, 10 years, and B, much more interesting that you realize you had qualities that you didn't believe in yourself, and sometimes surrounding ourselves with greatness is one of the great steps. So I'm Lara Morgan. I have the deep privilege, and I really mean a huge privilege, of having had an early career in enterprise, which now allows me to tread a chosen path in a much more educated way than just ferociously trying to survive and pay my bills. I used to sell toiletries for a living, but now I invest in wellness brands. So I have a portfolio of companies where the brands I choose to invest in make a meaningful difference in people's lives. I'm sure we'll get into that, but I have Yogi Bear. I have a luggage company called Gate 8 that basically means you don't have to check in luggage because it's sodding frustrating. High on my agenda is Centered, the mindful wellbeing brand. And actually, Brian, I'm really interested to talk to you about Mind and the importance of some of the amazing information that Mind have on their website in terms of helping people. I literally Googled the Mind website before I got online here to sense check that they would have the kind of resilience article and the tips for this. And I also have a brand called Kit Bricks, which I believe in the outdoors. I think it's free, it's fresh air, it happens in urban environments, there's parks, we invest in them. I'm a taxpayer like everybody else, and we need to go and get our share back. So I've also been on charities like Tree for Life, where we should plant apple trees so that actually you can also nick an apple because you paid for it in that park. But anyway, I digress. I really look forward to perhaps sharing some of the lunacy of hints, tips, and tricks about how we deal with this somewhat challenging subject.
Thanks, Laura. And it is those personal stories. And I think that's the thing that people can really kind of resonate with. You know, it's not about textbook here, is there? There's no one sort of definition of resilience, and there's no one way to build it. But Lee, what's your definition? I know you always love to bring sort of the personal stories into this, but talk to us about your resilience to you.
Yeah, so I suppose resilience for me, it's like a corporate buzzword nowadays. It's everywhere, millions of references to it. For me, it's a lot more flexible than people think it is. It's a lot more collective, and usually it's a lot more expressive. And it's not what a lot of people think is, being stoic, being stable. A lot of people think it's being strong and enduring through everything, when sometimes actually being resilient is asking for help. And I suppose a little bit about my own journey. 9 years ago, I lost the ability to walk and had to learn to walk again. And actually, what got me through that was my children accepting that I couldn't change the reality of what had happened, but I could take ownership over my recovery. I could take accountability for my own health going forward. And I was one of the first ones out of walk-in rehab. In fact, the first people out of walk-in rehab with me were the ones who'd come to a place of acceptance that actually this wasn't great, but we were going to really take hold of the things that we could control, work on the things we could influence, and really be able to make a difference. So yeah, resilience for me is about, how we plan and structure things so we can navigate uncertain and ambiguous times. It's about how we create space to recharge our batteries so that when we actually need a big hit of resilience, we've got enough in the tank to keep going. And also resilience is about actually opening up, being a lot more flexible, not just trying to weather the storm, but thinking about how you can use the tools and tactics that you have within you to actually whip out an umbrella, get a raincoat on, and carry on traveling. And even get to a point where you can feel like you can dance in the rain and embrace the fact that life is full of ups and downs, but actually we can take a lot of learning from adversity, because I sure have. And I think that's something we can all really look at, is challenges provide massive opportunities in all areas of life, and fostering some of that resilience for when we need it, when the times are good especially, means that when the times are challenging, we're there, we're present, we're able, and there's going to be some great tips across this, so I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, resilience, flexibility.
But just taking it back those 9 years, did you think you had stuff in the tank? Did you have resilience in the tank ready to go?
If I'm honest, I wasn't as prepared as I could have been. And I think that, again, in life, you quite often find that until you hit significant adversity, you're not prepared, and you're not prepared as you probably would have because you didn't see it coming. But actually, it teaches you how to become more prepared for the next pitfall. And I did have a little bit of preparation due to the mental health challenges out at university and being made redundant really early in my career. So I took some lessons from that and applied it to when things got pretty bad.
And there's no one manual, is it? You can't just pull a manual off the shelf, can you? It just doesn't work like that, And I know, Laura, you built a huge organization. And then, you then had to find, I always remember you saying to me, and please tell me if I misquote here, but you remember you saying, you know, you built this business, you sold it, and actually one of the toughest things was the year after you sold the business, because you had to deal with all that, you know. Actually, it was never as straightforward as it was, and I had to learn all this stuff, and you always were passionate about not having anyone go through what you went through. Am I right, or have I totally mistold the story?
Yeah, no, very, very accurate. And actually, it's 15 years ago, but you don't know what you don't know until you hit it sometimes, albeit I loved what Lee was saying, because that preparedness, lessons in life, you know, there'll be parents on this call, or perhaps potential parents. And one of the things I'm so grateful for is that, you know, if you fall off your bike, get back on attitude that my parents had. And if at first you don't succeed, try again. And, you know, just because it didn't work first time. And that, I guess, is something of my luck of my enterprise journey. But I was also going to share, Simone, you know, resilience to me is also by the way, I thought it was very funny. Charlie, who, you know, my husband, said, he said, it's about being long suffering. And I said, no, that's our marriage you're describing. and I just think it's, you know,
hi Charlie.
Yeah, it's a humanity, isn't it? And Lee also mentioned this, but you know, the ability to withstand or to recover is the definition of resilience, the idea that we bounce back. But actually, the worst thing that I think, and particularly perhaps British, perhaps I'm making an assumption, but we're not very good at asking for help because we're worried about others judging us. And I don't know, that's never been a problem for me. I guess, you know, I didn't lack from confidence as a child because I had an older brother. Was that also a gift in my life that has allowed me to talk to strangers? And what I would suggest is that actually we need to give our kids these experiences, you know, hand them the passports when you get to the airport and say, could you get me to the checkout desk? And you never have to worry about them traveling again. And you might also have a plan B, or be aware of your cadence. And, you know, the learning from adversity, you know, it's all very well selling a company, but it doesn't set you up for being a 40-year-old with 3 young children that you want to do good in the world and you want to have a really meaningful purpose. And I would say to you, you know, my journey at Pacific was almost linear, and it wasn't perfect because we had September the 11th. I nearly lost my house. I really, you know, I backed the business. But now, I guess, because of those experiences, I know what it feels like. So I watch out for my slightly knackered speaking, or I recognize when I need to go out and get fresh air. And instead of just working through it, go for a walk. I'm lucky enough to have a dog. You know, I also know that when I lack motivation, I'm extremely energetic. But if ever there is a case where you go, oh, you know that things aren't right. And that's maybe where you need to be asking for help, that kind of, can you be bothered thing. Yeah, I mean, for me, there are also tactics, and I know it's a long answer, but I thought, I'm sitting in my kitchen. My keys have something to allow me to recognize them quickly. My headphones have a very bright thing so that they're stored and it's efficient. My pencil case is chosen with a color so that it's different from them. I have tactics everywhere that also help me build resilience because I reduce the frustration of life. And I think that can be meaningful, like the language we use when we're not on it. So the routine of being organized, I call it the trip system. So literally on the way out my door, I have something I cannot go out without. So I want to trip over it. I put it by the door. My family know not to pick it up and put it on it, you know. So yeah, that's sort of where I'm coming from. I think those things boost confidence.
Absolutely. I like the idea of, it seems very, it doesn't feel like it's a resilience conversation, but by having a set of keys with a big, massive, huge nautical knot on there when you're trying to find something in the mother of all laptop bags or handbags is, and when you're running late for something and you can't get in, it's all those things that you can try and remove. Bryony, talk to us about some of those common misconceptions about resilience that you've come across in your sort of journey and experience, your professional career.
I think there's so many here, and they're so different for every individual, aren't they? And I've definitely fallen guilty to thinking some of these things. I think the main thing, kind of probably as Lee and Lara, it's not black and white. So it's not that you either are resilient or you're not. There's different levels and layers to it, and what resilience looks like to me will be different to everybody else, and that's right, because we are all different and individuals. And I think another misconception that we come across, and I probably thought this, was that you had to go through hard times to be resilient. And everybody's resilience is going to be different depending on their experiences, their upbringing, the support, everything kind of all in that holistic picture, if you will. But you can still look after your own health and well-being and build your resilience by finding things that you enjoy. That I think kind of, Lara, as you've just said there, like knowing when to stop, where your boundaries are, what keeps you well, what keeps you safe, it's understanding all those things that and feeding into them and building them by, I don't know, reading, exercising, speaking to friends, family, getting fresh air, linking into like your values, your sense of purpose, all those sorts of things you can do as an individual yourself, kind of trying to take it away from any experiences. But I think sometimes it's unfortunate that it and I've been that person where kind of something bad or something upsetting, distressing has happened, and then I've thought, actually no, I need to look after myself better, and started engaging more in those things. So those were kind of two. Something
quite counterintuitive that works for me, and I think it's extremely powerful, is when I'm feeling a bit low and I need to feel better, I find it deeply rewarding to put a smile on someone else's face by putting back. Now, actually, the putting back may not be softly catchy monkey. It may not be stroking someone's ego. It may just be sharing a skill set that you have where you can perhaps enlighten or share an experience. But I come away sometimes from meetings, and I mean, Simone will probably back me up on the brutal Lara effect sometimes, but I do it with goodwill. I do it very genuinely, I hope, and authentically. I only ever speak from experience, but perhaps Simone doesn't recognize that I'm doing it for me too, to put a smile on my face because I gave. And if you give, I absolutely guarantee you get much more. It's how I was brought up by a kindergarten teacher. It works a million times.
I think so. We do these monthly power up sessions. You talked about, having conversations. We talked about, Martina in the group here in the chat has put about asking for help. We've talked about that help factor. We create these monthly virtual sessions and we do them live as well, but we create them again just to enable that space to have conversations. We're not always good at asking for help. And actually, if we can have ask for that help early on, then hopefully we're cutting out some of that stress. Lee, give us some of your top tips or some of your personal tips. We've seen Laura's keys and we've seen the trip hazards and we've talked about being outside and dogs for a walk and all that kind of stuff. We've talked about that. Talk to us about what you've used and how you've created sort of space to build back on your resilience.
Yeah, for me, Simone, it's always been, firstly, if you're able to actually create clear goals and expectations, then you know what you're measuring yourself against. And in my office, I have like a wall calendar full of numbers. And people look at it and think, what are those? That's me actually measuring my energy levels. And I'm very proactive with that. And I use that because I still have to manage my energy, because I still manage a chronic illness to this day. But that just gives me insight. I see the numbers starting to drop. I know I need to take direct action. I also create opportunities to move in my everyday calendar. I have, kind of non-negotiable aspects to look after myself. And they are blocked in like a meeting with my biggest shareholder. It's not moving. And unless I'm not moving, it's not moving. So you've actually got to have, and while people sometimes mistake resilience for being really rigid and regimented and disciplined, you actually have to have the discipline with yourself and real rigor, and have those conversations with yourself. I like to consider it constructive feedback for you, where you constructively sometimes dismantle yourself and put yourself back together again. And I think that while that can feel a bit uncomfortable, it's actually another way that I managed to foster my resilience is by, really kind of going in on myself. And it helps me to build my self-awareness, manage my time and energy. Another one, Simone, obviously, is fostering connections with other people. Other people don't always have the energy to listen. But if you have a network, if you create connections, if you actually build relationships, there will be someone who has that space to listen if you need that little bit of help. And yeah, we all need that in a world where none of us are islands. The final thing for me, learning and being curious. It keeps me energized. It keeps me on my toes. There's always something new I can learn, a new skill, something I can, develop, and just being curious like a 7-year-old child, because they're the most resilient people you will meet. I'm always asking why. I'm always questioning things. And yeah, I think for me, it just helps me to create that space. But systems and structures are always going to give you the ability to have anchor points, even when things are all over the place.
Does anyone else use that? I love the idea of the numbers. I love the idea of actually being we're in an office here. We love our whiteboards, and we've got magnetic whiteboards, and we've got, we have different things to sort of, to bring ideas to life, as well as kind of, routes to follow. But any other top tips? There you go, Laura. A nice, good old notebook.
But actually, it's more than that. So look at this: one red one black one. I'm such a, I'm so systematic. And I'm laughing because you've made me, Lee, think I'm partly Scottish, and that's not meant to be appallingly racist, other than that I'm a great saver and anything free that I can get. So yesterday I came back, genuinely, I'll show you this. I don't know if you can see. There's a bouquet of flowers there, and I nicked most of them, just some from my garden, but most from nature. And I was picking up pine cones, and you may laugh, right? But actually, that's me learning about the seasons. It's about me enjoying the outdoors. It's about me feeling better about challenges. I took a really good day off, but planning in the water, I'm drinking mint tea. It's free, and that's not just the Scottish genes. It's because it grows like a sodding weed. But I was laughing with you all pre-call about pre-planning things, but also, I have a mantra. And of course, because Centered has become my passion, my brand, where we apply our balm. And you knew I was going to do this, and I kind of have permission, but we can enhance the way we feel with scent. And actually, I'll tell you, during COVID, I was really in trouble mentally and work-wise. We had some businesses failing. And I've shared this with friends who, when they were having a bad moment, I said to them, follow your work routine. I know you're not going out, but get dressed for work. I put a decent shirt on. I don't wear slippers. I put my fragrance on, I've brushed I'm ready for the working mindset. So I also think that location for us, and of course, work has to make its effort at helping with our thinking and our outlook and our freedom. But workplaces have got so much smarter, but workplaces need to still work harder on freedom and agility and choice and timing, because we also have cadence. Work out, when do you work best? I love the early morning, mainly because there's no one else annoying me, ringing me, or adding to my emails. So I get stuff done and I get into the day before I, stop and have a coffee with my husband. And I, at that point, have probably done 3 hours work, right? But that's my summertime routine, and I absolutely love it. I cannot underestimate the power of having a mantra. So my children gave me Rudyard Kipling's book, If, because the poem is very important to me. But equally, I have a mantra within our brand: stop, inhale, and reset. And that can be rewrite the things to do list, right? This list ensures that I recognize I've got too much to do. I realize that I'm never going to get it all done. And I prioritize by red and black according to must get it done today. And those tactics of, also, I literally, before this call, wrote a help memo to my team on one of the companies to say, I'm not going to get this done. I accept that we need to work together on it, but actually I'm delegating. So, and there'll be people listening to this call going, but nobody's listening to me. I don't have support. You just have to keep constantly working out a way to talk to your leadership and your management to progress. I had a boss like that who was like talking to a brick wall years ago. So I think persistence is also something about resilience within, because you are going to try stuff and it's not necessarily going to work for you, or it was the wrong time. Doesn't mean you shouldn't. I think those things are very combined in making a determined. Lee talked about, booking time in. I think that's priceless. I have grey time. You can't book a diary meeting in those grey moments.
I'm taking all these top tips down. I always do on these webinars. Bryony, we've got a message in the chat from Kelly from Northumbria Police. As a neurodivergent thinker, it's having the correct support in the workplace to help reframe the mind and remove the barriers. I find that this works to build resilience when the demand is high. So a great comment. Thank you, Kelly. But just sort of anything you can sort of feed into that, Bryony?
I think definitely as a workplace, we need to do more and more. We've kind of got training so that people understand, like, no two people are the same. Individual differences, I guess, kind of are being, rightly so, like, we're paying more and more attention to them, as we should be, because we all work so differently. And like Lara, you said, I'll work really well in the morning. I am not a morning person. I desperately want to be a morning person, but I just love sleep. I love my bed. Like, that is how I manage my resilience. Sleeping, I need 8 hours a night, or like, I'm not fit for anything. But I think definitely, I guess kind of in terms of looking after your own resilience, and we as a workplace now have signed up to be an inclusive employer. If you can be open and honest, and we empower people to have the confidence and say, actually, you know, whether it is I struggle with anxiety or I've got a diagnosis of X, Y, or Z, being open and honest with that with an employer and having the support, and I guess being able to say, actually, I need this. We use kind of tools, and like I said, I'm logical. I love anything that's logical and practical, and we'll use like things like wellbeing action plans in the workplace, where I've done one and I get to write down what I want from my manager. I've got a really good relationship with him and within my team, but I can state there, if I'm not myself, you'll notice, like, I can talk to a brick wall. If I'm quiet at work, something's wrong. Like, I'm either really struggling and concentrating or something's wrong, but he knows, and he'll come up to me and be like, you've not spoke today, like, what's going on? Or, you know, kind of if I've not moved, and like, I really love getting outside, and that's how I look after my well-being kind of activity, because I think when I'm at the gym or trying to keep up with the people that I run with, I can't think about anything else other than like, don't get left behind sort of thing, like running at the back of them. A couple of weeks ago I got injured and I couldn't do that, and he was like, you're not all right, like, what's going on? And I was like, I hurt my knee. But just being able to document that and talk about it, I think those conversations they're easier for some people, but they are quite difficult to pinpoint and to know kind of, and to have that communication. If we can use tools like wellbeing action plans or wellbeing passports, things like that, where we write it down and we document it and we review it, it can enhance, I guess, kind of how you feel at work, how you're supported at work, and then your wellbeing outside of work, because there's nothing worse, like been there where you're going into a job and you think, oh, I've got to deal with this today, or I've got this that somebody doesn't know about, and I'm going to have the pressure, and how do I keep spinning all those plates? You need that communication to help people in the workplace.
Lara, did you have something?
I was just thinking, I'm desperate to ask Bryony to share the template of the Wellbeing Action Plan, because that also is, I know, again, give to get. If we all, again, you know, I'm spending every hour of every day trying to get the value, but of health conversations. And I don't, you know, it's an irony that if we don't call them mental health conversations, and that's an important piece in language, it scares people less. And actually everything starts in the mind. That's where our brain is. And we know it as humans, but we've created this negative stigma and context. So actually, let's just talk about health and wellness lifestyles, health and wellness plans, because actually then we can move mountains, and we can move mountains in parts, or we can move mountains in steps. We can move mountains as a team. And actually, Bryony, the culture where your leadership knows to bother to read you and asks is not yet perfect in any workplace. I mean, you know, I know it's an up and down thing, but actually we also, as human beings, have the right to challenge and to say, I think we need to be outspoken ourselves to say when it's not acceptable. That takes bravery.
Yeah, no, I think it's so right. Sorry, I was just going to say, there is Mind have a fantastic wellbeing action plan template, so signpost you to their website. But yeah, they're brilliant for getting people to have those less comfortable conversations and to pinpoint what you need from who and highlight things.
And Lee, I'm just sort of talking about the comment around neurodivergent thinkers and having that correct support in the workplace. You know, every organization is different. Every individual works within a business is different, you know, but actually not, you know, people aren't it's not all being got right, is it? So any kind of really sort of top tips or any good from your personal experience around neurodiversity that we can bring in to really help build on resilience building?
Yeah, sorry, I just had a bit of a technical moment there. So for me, and I'm quite openly autistic and talk a lot about it. Being able to request accommodations in your workplace. I mean, it's important to be able to actually identify what could be helpful for you. Is that from a sensory perspective, a communication perspective? There are things that you can really look to use the technologies that we have to support you. There are things that you can make requests for. Obviously, even getting your workplace to become a bit more neuro-inclusive and a bit more aware. Every neurodivergent individual is different. But if we start to actually create those little personalized accommodations for people in the workplace, that might be flexibility in where they work. It might be, things that can navigate some of those sensory challenges, communication aspects, even sending an agenda before a meeting just so they can prepare and know exactly what it's going to be about. But it's also worth just a few individual things for you as well. What do I use? I walk every evening. It really helps me. The first part of the walk, I compartmentalize everything that I've taken during the day. It helps me clear my brain out so I can sleep better. The second part of the walk, I become really creative. And actually, that's where a lot of my ideas come. And I use that walk as a way to kind of decompress, but also to, ideate and actually create things. I'll run around with my journal. I've always got something to, jot down stuff. It just helps me get out of my own head, makes me more present in the moment, makes me more aware. We've all got these little things that we do. Sometimes we're not even aware we've made accommodations for ourselves. But one of the most important things is to really think about what works for you. Some things don't work immediately when you try them, but they compound over time. And really, it's not about the massive sweeping changes that you make when it comes to your health sometimes. It's about all those small little things that you can do that, a bit like a savings account, putting a few pence in here and there doesn't feel like a lot, but over time, it becomes massive. And there isn't really a better way to actually start to save than to look at a few little things that you can do, that you can attach to other habits that you already have. And that actually, like Lara says, if you put it in the way, you'll probably end up doing it. So make it visible and make it enjoyable. And actually, make it so that you haven't got an excuse not to do it, because it's easier to talk yourself out of things sometimes.
And you openly out there talking, Lee, you have such an amazing profile. In fact, everyone's got a great profile, but you actually talk about things in a very action focused, aren't you? And I think that's quite key, isn't it? So even just the simplicity of breaking a walk down into reflect, create, with a bit of decompression in there, it's something everyone can do, isn't it? And I think that's what we want from this, is you go away and you do. And
I mean, you become incredibly grateful for walking when you've not been able to do it for a period of time. And it's like all these things we take for granted. When you do lose it, oh boy, do you realize just how important it is. So it's those things that sometimes you take for granted. If you just take a minute to step back and think, actually, I can do that, and I don't even have to think about it. It can be really powerful. So I mean, within some of the actions that you already do, there are benefits. I think when it comes to resilience, quite often our hobbies and interests are the things that charge us back up for some of the things that we have to do that we don't find as interesting or as purposeful, but we still got to do them because we're humans and we exist within a system. And that's why sometimes resilience can be quite creative, quite expressive. It can be something that you do that really lights you up, that you get into flow, and all of a sudden hours have gone by and you're doing it. And the beauty is that is different for everyone. And I do get a little bit frustrated with people saying, this is what resilience is, when actually it's quite unique and we're all bio-individual. I think the other thing that kind of ticks me off as well is when people say it's all about bouncing back. Have you seen a human adult that bounces well if they fell down the stairs? I mean, maybe toddlers, but human adults don't really bounce that well. So it's much more about what we can learn from falling over and making sure we don't have to bounce back as much by taking some of those lessons forward. Because, adult humans don't really bounce very well.
It's language, isn't it? Language is so key in this. And, we all think we know what the word resilience means. But Laura, for people out there who are listening now, watching, who have never worked on their resilience because they thought they were resilient or hadn't really sort of thought to consider it. We'll talk about well-being and self-care, but actually someone out there has never really thought, actually, I'm going to put a plan in place and I'm going to start building on it. Where'd you start? Good question.
I think, like I said at the beginning, if we look back at our lives, we've all, and different hurdles, different moments, different challenges. Nobody's had an exactly smooth journey. And I don't know, I think, obviously I'm a mindset freak and I'm not qualified like the others, but I do know that scent enhances memories. And I think memories of what happened to us as children are hugely important, where we do a huge amount of learning. And yet there's also this human protection system. We say to kids when they go to the playground, don't talk to strangers. And then as a salesperson, I speak to strangers for the rest of my life. I mean, what an irony is that? So I'm unlearning some of the stuff that protected me as a small child. And I think if you build on some of the things where something's gone wrong and you've put it right, I think Lee was also intending that, you should celebrate and reward yourself perhaps for small things. I mean, laughably, and you've heard me say this in speeches, Simone, but, when I was broke and trying to build my first company, I would get my legs waxed as a reward if I got a good sale. I mean, I look back and I still think, there was nothing wrong with that. That was my reward. And I think also having something to look forward to. So, when we're working in the workplace, we can always find excuses to celebrate something. I mean, on Friday, before the bank holiday, I gathered my team around me and we do this thing where we go, what's something I don't know about that you're really chuffed about with that somebody else has helped you with? So that's giving credit to someone else. I'm still typing this up today, but and then what can I do to help you? Where, come to me, ask me do we need, better communication always comes up, but actually also the most small things can make things easier for people's jobs. Do we need more teaspoons in a kitchen? I don't know, but I've also had brilliant suggestions. And then at the end, what would you say to me about, something that I can do better for you? So I think at the heart of this, there's lots of different ways of communicating. We all need to experiment with what works for us to buoy us up, because I go away from that meeting and I'm feeling, actually, do you know what? We're not doing too badly. There's quite a lot of positivity there. It's not perfect yet. It'll never be perfect. And I think that's another point I'll make, which is I'm not particularly patient with perfectionism, because I think there's a human nature that says, even if someone presents to you and they go, this is great, human nature by competitive, and there's nothing wrong with being competitive, but by competitive outlet has a mindset to want to do better. Or I'm just a positive person and I'm not looking to be better. I'm looking for things to become better. So I think verbalizing that and saying that by nature we're critical. So then the perfect thing that's presented to me, I want to improve upon it. So actually get it to market is the enterprise way. And then look for feedback and experiment with something and evolve it. And so I think the other thing that we really need to teach each other, and this isn't just a young generation, this isn't every generation, but, the idea that we can wing it a bit and we should be less critical of each other, because that actually just helps the world go round. And a touch of kindness is free. But so say thank you to someone, but mean it, and say congratulations, or create some recognition, an excuse to celebrate. So if you're building resilience yourself, maybe also be fair to yourself and do the self-care. And, there are some days I get to the end of the day and I just have to go, so what on earth did I achieve today? And then I start thinking about it and I go, actually, not too bad, and then I rewrite the list and we start again the next day and we take a breath. So yeah, centered it. I mean, I'm biased, but I mean, not mad. And I think sometimes we need tools and techniques to build this resilience thing. That's why we're building the brand centered. So I can't help myself but promote it, because I think even if you don't use the pocket rocket, which by the way in America means something quite different, don't say that. But the idea that you can have it doesn't matter what your tool is. It matters that you recognize you're working on something, and it won't be perfect immediately. Life's not like that.
And that's what we said all the way through today's conversation. It's talk about there is no one rule book for it, you know. And I'm going to come to there's a message in the chat from Alison, you know, looking for suggestions on how to incorporate discussion around wellbeing in a predominantly male environment. So I'll come to that in a minute, but just quick one for you, Bryony, just before I give people a chance to sort of think around that question. You know, we talked about, you know, almost like Groundhog Day at times, Laura, you know, great. And I do this and I've done this process and I've taken action here and I've gone for my walk. But then the next day you start again. How do you stay motivated, Bryony, through, you know, and consistent when we're practicing some of these strategies around resilience building?
I think kind of what I would say is start small. Don't, you know, if a friend came to you saying, I'm struggling to do X, Y, and Z, you wouldn't be like, oh yeah, well, you've got to do it to look after your well-being. You would be kind to them. So be kind to yourself. Start small. Make sure that whatever you're going to do in terms of looking after your well-being resilience, whether that's taking 5 minutes out or going for a 10-minute walk or reading 5 pages of a book, start small and make sure it's manageable, because I think then it's easier to stick with and maintain. You can always build on that. Like, I think kind of reading I love now, but again, like, that was something I struggled with. It really helps me switch off. But initially, it was somebody who said to me, and they were like, well, why just read 1 page a night? Like, why are you trying to? I was like, I'm going to get in bed and read half an hour. And they were like, read 1 page a night, and once you've done that, build on it. I think so yeah, start small. I like to also, I guess, kind of look at everything that I've done in a day, and to make sure that it's manageable, I will, like, probably similar to what everybody else has said, but like chunk it into kind of like necessary things that I need to do, routine things that I need to do, and then make sure I've got something enjoyable in there. So in terms of looking out for your resilience, and you know, you might not feel like going doing the walk, but once you've done that, what's something enjoyable that you're going to do at the end of the day? Is it spending time with family, with children? You know, part of your routine might be getting up and going to work. You've done then the necessary things in terms of cooking, cleaning, paying bills, whatever it is. Put something enjoyable at the end of that, almost like a reward, whether, you know, yeah, whatever it is, a bath, spending time with family.
Not getting your legs waxed. Getting your legs waxed. That's a whole other thing. Lee, just in response to the question that Alison's put in about any suggestions about sort of you know, an environment that maybe doesn't encourage you to be sort of vulnerable or lean in, you know, what are those suggestions Alison could take away about well-being in a predominantly male environment, who, for want of stereotyping in Alison's words, often don't want to talk about?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's reframe the conversation a little bit, because well-being can be things like football, it can be things like music, it can be things like fatherhood. It's kind of moving away from the reality that well-being is seen as an industry, and for a lot of people that is, you know, lycra, yoga, things that they don't associate with, and therefore it feels like the antithesis of me wanting to go to the pub at the weekend with my mates. But it's actually demystifying that well-being aspect, thinking about some of the kind of the words that I use, some of the communication, and even kind of taking it back to, you know, well-being is something that you need to define for yourself and what makes you feel that way. Obviously, you know, we do suffer with stigma around mental health. Like Lara said earlier, the term, it's still lauded with a lot of perceptions from the past. But I'm finding more and more men curious, more and more men willing to open up. It's been great to see role models starting that process and using their platforms for the better. But we still need to get, you know, into a place where we're not stiff upper lipping our way through life. And that often, you know, it's a little bit of kindness, a little bit of compassion, and starting those conversations. And what's interesting is, even through my work as a male ally, Simone, I'm finding that when men start to consider what women are going through, they actually start to become more kind and compassionate to themselves. You know, shock horror. And the countries with the best gender equity also have the best male health rates. What does that say? When we start actually looking after each other, everyone benefits. So yeah, it can be challenging to have those conversations, but sometimes you kind of meet men where they're at. Sometimes you help them remove some of the misconceptions, and you just kind of let them know that it's okay to talk, and actually there are people who will listen, and you don't need to just endure everything. You don't need to try and be a superhero, because actually heroes are protectors, and protectors, what's the weapon of choice? Weapon of choice is love. So yeah, men can break some of those barriers down.
And in all, Lee, that was magic there. That's another thing for one of our tote bag range, I think there, Laura. Just, we literally have seconds to go. Was the one thing that we talked about, sort of reflection, creation, walking, asking for help. Quick one-liner. Bryony, I'll come to you first, then to Lee, then to Laura.
In terms of looking after my well-being, my resilience.
Yeah, what can people do from today's conversation?
From today's conversation, I think check in with yourself. So that was one of the things. I think take notice. That was another, the first question you asked about kind of another myth, and it was that resilient people, that they carry on through tough times, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you need to stop, check where you're at, check in with yourself, how you're thinking and feeling, and taking a break is not a bad thing. Stepping away is a good thing, and that's sometimes how resilient people appear to carry on, because they take a day, a month, a week, whatever it is out, and look after themselves before they move forward.
And Lee?
Yeah, embrace curiosity of yourself, explore yourself, and yeah, document things down. Just notice, pay attention, be present.
Mrs. Morgan?
Small steps is very important. Rewards important. But I think what Bryony said about it's different for each of us.
Thank you all so much. Thank you to Bryony. Thank you to Laura. Thank you to Lee. I was like, where on earth does the time go? Please do keep the conversation going on social medias when you're watching on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, or watching back. Please do share this, because we want people to take away, want people to do and to take action, not just to watch and be a wire, but to actually do something. But actually, it starts with you. It starts with the woman or man in the mirror, you know. So look at that mirror, because actually you can do something. And the sum of all those small parts can add up to you building your resilience, making that change and helping others, and listen out for that help. So thank you all so much for joining us. We're a minute over. Please forgive us. Thank you all of us for joining us. I can tell you we're all really absorbed in the chat. Thank you so much, everyone. Please do. Thank you to United Utilities for supporting today, and do keep the conversation going. #WeArePower on all of our socials. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar, Failing Fast, at the next webinar that we've got on the 13th of June. But please do connect on all of our our platform, wearepower.net. Thank you so much for joining us.